doing creative work, it can be really difficult to consistently make progress on your goals. Often, I find myself stumbling a little bit after I reach a milestone. And those milestones take a lot of ramp up time to get consistency and efficiency moving towards your goals. And something I found that happens is after I complete a milestone and I start moving into another one, I am still working on my project, but I'm not really seeing much progress. This is something that I have noticed happen consistently throughout my creative project. For me specifically, I'm working on a board game. This can apply to just about anything. What tends to happen once I pass the milestone, I start doing work. I have a rough idea of what needs to happen next, so I just start on it. I just start putting time into it. It isn't immediately apparent to me that I'm not really being effective. It takes time for me to notice that. And the longer it takes, the more time I'm not using it to the best of my ability. After having had dealt with this multiple times now, I have started to realize this is a consistent pattern. It's something that you can notice and address with some practice. The big missing piece of the puzzle that's been holding me back is planning. Planning is the glue that holds your project together. It can be easy to disregard planning. It seems like time that isn't really moving you forward, and that is true. It is important that you take action along with planning. Paired together is where you will see peak efficiency. Something that I've started to work on. When I notice I'm having a lot of mental difficulties getting my head around what needs to happen next, or what I'm really trying to do, or where I need to go, that really starts to set in for me after a week or two of minimal efficiency. And after I start experiencing that, I'm getting faster at it, but I still need to keep working at it. But it's starting to just trigger something in my head where I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I'm not making progress. Because I have no idea, or I should say, it's not that I don't have any idea what I'm doing, it's that I don't have a clear picture and clear direction. Without those, I just start to flounder, and I do make progress still, but it's really not where I want it to be. What I have started doing is when I notice this sort of mental fog, I take time and I plan. I know it is tough to take that in and realize that you need to spend time on that too, but it is 100% worth it. So there's two types of planning. Both are important. Preferably when you start a project, you have kind of your initial planning, your big picture. So that way you can establish what needs to be done, period, to complete your whole project. For my board game, for example, this included starting to do some YouTube work to build up a community. So this is part of my board game plan. Obviously, make a board game is an aspect of this plan. One of the more important ones for sure. Other aspects that I haven't even started on yet are like manufacturing, possibly starting an LLC, possibly doing Kickstarter planning. There is a lot that goes into projects. It's good to just map it out and have a general idea of where you need to go and what you need to do. That's big picture. More what I'm referring to in these instances where I get stuck, the short-term big picture. So what is most important for next week is really what I'm talking about. And what I have started to do is every week I'm going to choose 4 tasks that are my priority for that week. The purpose of this is to give yourself some deadlines to help you really move forward. The thing that really just opens your eyes, makes it very obvious what you need to do, is when you take just any day of the week and you decide, all right, on that day, I am deciding what I'm going to do next week. You are forcing yourself to go through your to-do list, to look forward on your project, and to say, okay, for what I am trying to accomplish, what needs to be done next? And that is a challenging question that is way too easy to avoid, ends up hurting us in the long run when we put it off. This is something that I have really felt in my current project. There will be times where I'm not really feeling like I'm making any progress, and then I take the time to plan, and all of a sudden things just start falling into place. I start doing what needs to be done. I start getting a really clear vision of where I'm heading, and I can actually see the path to completing my next step. And there is something so satisfying about that. And I want you guys to be able to experience the same thing. So I know planning can be intimidating, it can feel like a waste of time. But if you do it right and you make sure to pair it with action, it can really boost your efficiency. You may be wondering, how do I know when I'm subconsciously stuck? Now, first of all, what I mean by subconsciously stuck is it's more of when you're still making progress, but it's just not very efficient. You're not really moving at the pace you want to. You're not seeing the results you're expecting. That's what I mean by subconsciously stuck. So there's some sort of hurdle, some sort of mental thing that is stopping you from seeing the progress that you want to see. And this is something that is painfully obvious over the long term, but can be kind of difficult to notice when you're in the thick of it. So the main goal here is to just start to really pay attention to your workflow. If you're seeing huge spikes of productivity and then you sort of taper off as you're transitioning to a new piece of work, then that probably means that you need to plan more and come up with a better direction for yourself. And it really comes down to pattern recognition within your own workflow. This isn't something I'm going to be able to tell you exactly what is stopping you, where you're getting subconsciously stuck. You're just going to have to really give yourself time to reflect, think about it, and you'll get better at this. I really think this is a practice that you start to notice when you're stuck, and then you can start to address it early on. The main goal of this is to just notice as soon as possible, because then you can act and deal with this problem and move forward more efficiently. What can I do to get unstuck? This is a really big point of reflection. You need to start asking yourself some big questions that you may have been putting off. For example, what exactly needs to happen next for my project? Now be prepared. This could lead to some pretty big questions that you may have to just face and answer. And it may take longer than you want it to. These are necessary steps to be able to move forward. It could be a simple question as well, like, what do I have left to finish this part of my project? And it could also be, now that I'm done with this part, what exactly do I need to solve this whole new part? Which, just accept it right now, transitioning to a new piece of the project is a challenge. There is ramp up time, and you need to just take that for yourself. Plan it out, think it through, be okay with the amount of time it takes. Because otherwise, you're just going to keep falling into these same holes. For the next question, how can I avoid becoming stuck in the future? First off, come up with a plan to complete your project. If you set up a weekly process for yourself to just figure out what you're doing next week, it's going to make it a lot easier. And you'll know as soon as you sit down to do that planning session if you're stuck. Because you'll go think about what you need to do next, and all of a sudden your mind goes blank. And like, oh, well, I need to transition into making the board game now, or starting the company. And those can be big steps, and they require planning. The more thorough you can be, the better. For starting out, just find the smallest direction, the broadest categories, and just jot them down and refine it as you go. This is an extended process, and if you rush it, you're just going to end up slowing yourself down in the future. I want to give you a real world example of how this just recently happened to me. So for my board game work, I had just gotten through a successful solo playtest, and I realized there was a whole lot of changes I needed to make. After I realized all that, it was very clear that I needed to do a bunch of design sessions to figure out how I want to make these changes and where I want the game to go. So I did that, and I was feeling really good. Came up with some really cool ideas for my game. I was excited. And then came the part where I needed to start implementing all those changes, and I started to tread water. Why did I do this? Well, because I felt really good. I made a ton of progress in a short amount of time. Then came the part that I wasn't really looking forward to, honestly. So it got me in this weird state where I felt like I was making more progress. I was still thinking about my game regularly, but there's about a week or two where I wasn't really moving forward. It started to dawn on me that I generally knew all the changes I need to make, but I hadn't really sat down and thought about it. I knew all those pieces were floating out there. Taking the time to kind of go through that process of thinking about what I need to do before I'm ready for another playtest. It made it really clear. After that, I've been making a lot more consistent progress because I've just laid it out for myself, laid it all out on the table. It's like, all right, you got a lot of work to do, but that's okay. I'm just going to break it down into smaller pieces so that I can start to move forward. That's another thing that happens when we don't take the time to plan is we allow ourselves to get overwhelmed because we're not breaking things down into bite-sized pieces. You can't just say, all right, make a board game and then you'll know exactly what to do. You really got to take the time to just make it in the smallest amount possible. Truly think about, okay, I have X amount of time. What do I actually feel like I can get done this week without, blowing off all my other responsibilities? And when you start to look at it like that, start being realistic with yourself, your progress just starts to go up exponentially. It's funny. You feel like you're letting yourself down by not shooting for the moon every week, but really the best thing you can do for yourself is be realistic. Give yourself a pass if you don't always hit your goals. That's another thing about project planning. You are guessing. They're probably very educated guesses, especially if this is like your own solo project that you're working on. But they're still guesses. Things come up, things change, and that's why you just really have to be consistent with planning and thinking through all of these details while still acting so that you are actually moving forward. It's very important that you pair those two things together. Planning forever, you'll never have a project, and just acting, you'll end up redoing work over and over again because you keep heading in the wrong direction and you have to keep switching gears and changing things. So just pairing those together, to what extent for each is going to be specific for you and your project. Play with it and see what works best for you. All right, guys, I hope this was incredibly helpful for you. This has taken me a while to realize. It was actually about 6 to 8 months ago, I finally sat down and came up with the overall project plan where I decided I needed to start building up social media following and how I actually wanted to approach my game and all that stuff. That was very helpful. And then I don't know why it took me another 6 months to realize, oh yeah, I need to do this on a smaller scale too. Having gone through the motion here, I think it's a lesson that's really going to stick with me, and I hope this video helps you guys with your projects so you don't have to go through everything I did. I hope you guys have a great night. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys in my next video.